The mind frequently interprets the invitation to live as the unknown or to live in the unknown as something to do with the future, the uncertainty of the future, which can be a scary prospect because we like to perhaps have an idea of what our future will look like, what I'll be doing, who I am, who I'm becoming, and the circumstances of my life, the circumstances of the world. And so for many, the idea of the unknown as the future is scary. At some point, some will come to terms that you cannot possibly predict the future. You cannot absolutely know what is going to happen to you, to your life, to the world, to anybody else. That's a rational conclusion to come to, logical, even though not necessarily desirable by many. But that's not what we're speaking about. This has nothing to do with the future. It has nothing to do with circumstances or events, life situations or world situations. This has to do with now and not the circumstances of now, but the truth of now, the truth of you. The default position is to define oneself by what is being experienced now. To define oneself by what is felt, what I feel, what I think. To define oneself by the content of experience. In other words, energy moves. It could be tears, it could be anger, it could be confusion, it could be some discomfort, it could be happiness, it could be elation, it could be inspiration. And almost unconsciously, as a default mechanism, one defines oneself by that. One comes to a conclusion. The mind or the separate self comes to a conclusion about itself. These conclusions are constantly taking place and create a platform, a structure upon which the separate self stands or is encased in, imprisoned by. The conclusions are based on the past, memory. I feel grief, or I feel sadness, or I feel whatever it is. And that's what I felt before when I was a child. And therefore it means I am not good enough, not worthy enough, not clever enough, not this enough, not that enough. It's not a conscious situation. It happens unconsciously, like a knee-jerk reaction. And the separate self lives or operates from these threads, traces of the past, and also in comparison to others. Comparison often enabled by the conditioning of society and our families that say we should be like this. This is what you should become in order to be safe in the world, or in order to be successful in the world, or in order to be worthy enough in the world. And all these mechanisms operate in the background. These conclusions that we make, whether they are undermining or whether they are empowering, create the platform of I know who I am. Doesn't matter whether who I am is the victim or the not good enough, or the perfect one, the good enough one, the successful one. Either way, it's a restrictive dimension that keeps on enabling the sense of a separate self being in control, knowing who I am. Even if I'm confused, I know that I am confused, and there's a conclusion to that. That's not good enough. That's not safe. All of this creates a very thick or thin, it doesn't matter, or layered veil, a veiling of our true nature as that which is open, just like, and illuminated, just like the sun. That's not a replacement identity for the separate self. It's something radically different, a whole different paradigm. So the invitation to live from the unknown, as the unknown, in the unknown, these are all useful ways of saying it, is the invitation to allow life to move in you, to be experienced through you without coming to a conclusion. Without the constant narrative that is experiencing and then reporting to the self about what this means to the self. It's a kind of self-referencing. It's the invitation to fall open. Not the kind of openness that means you're vulnerable to external harm, or that you need to connect with everybody and go up and hug them. Not that kind of openness. But the openness that doesn't close, the openness that has nothing to do with connection or not connection, the openness that is not on a horizontal level, that is not of the personhood, but is really of the discovery of that which is already open, that which doesn't have a conclusion in it, to see the colour red and not report on it to oneself. That's coming to a conclusion. It's as simple as that. To, feel anything, to see anything, to walk around, shapes, colours. Some of them delight and uplift, and some of them may feel a little more down or constricted, but not to report on it to yourself. But in reporting on it, you make a conclusion about yourself. We can stretch this out to circumstances that happen, feelings, emotions, your internal landscape. The sky doesn't self-reference when the storm is passing. The storm simply is here, and the storm simply passes. It doesn't mean anything about the sky. Sky nature hasn't changed. Open nature hasn't changed. It sounds complicated, but it's not. A child simply experiences, it hasn't yet learnt to self-reference. Everything is an energy experience. Everything is a wide open, this, even the movement of tears, even pain, even whatever it is, every emotion, every sensation, this hasn't yet learnt to create a platform for itself. It's a kind of curiosity, you could say. The Buddhists would say this is curiosity. I'm a little suspect of the word curiosity because it implies, already it brings up an image of the mind being curious, the self being curious. What is this? Let me find out and come to a conclusion. That's still looking for the known. We take curiosity lightly, just in the sense of a wide-eyed openness. Just because you're feeling something, just because an emotion is being experienced, doesn't mean something bad about you. It doesn't mean something bad or good is going to happen to you. It doesn't mean you're more worthy or less worthy, and therefore your life is going to go in that direction. Even the conclusions we come about our spiritual insights, understandings, deepenings, now I know what awareness is. And therefore, somewhere there's some kind of path opening up, there's some kind of progress. No. Don't define yourself by any understanding, by any knowledge, by any experience, by any emotion. This allows life to simply be. It already is. But the veil of separation, the veil of separate self comes undone. It is living without a center. The conclusion making, the platform building creates a center. And from that center you operate from the known, or at least the imagined known, what you imagine to be the known. I know who I am, I know who I've been, I know what I'm becoming. I know how life is. I know what this means, and there's lots of different layers to this. But if you were just open, not knowing, This moment is as it is. That's it. You don't have to add anything to that. And then life, the fullness of life, the richness of life, the exquisiteness of life, not as some perfect destination, as some perfect life, but just this, opens, reveals itself, it flows more freely.